If you are an INFJ, whose intuition reads everyone in the room, yet somehow leaves you blind to who is actually mirroring you, this video will finally explain the Nye paradox that makes you vulnerable to narcissists, and why their love bombing feels like recognition when it's actually a trap. The greatest irony of being an INFJ is this: you possess one of the rarest cognitive functions in the human population, yet it comes with a devastating blind spot. Your Nye, that mysterious introverted intuition, sees patterns, archetypes, and hidden truths that others miss entirely. You can read a room. You can sense what someone is feeling before they've said a word. You know what people need before they ask. And yet there exists a particular species of person who has learned to exploit this gift so completely that you become the very thing you fear most, unseen. This is the mirroring cycle, and it begins not with deception, but with recognition. The moment someone mirrors your depth back to you, something activates in your INFJ psyche. It feels like being finally understood. And because your Nye constantly scans for meaning and pattern, you interpret that mirroring as confirmation that you have found someone rare, someone who genuinely sees you. But here is the shadow truth. Your Nye is not actually seeing the other person clearly. Your Nye is seeing itself. Understanding this requires us to move into the mechanics of how your intuitive function actually operates. Nye is pattern recognition at the deepest level. It collects information from your environment, subtle cues, unspoken tensions, the spaces between words, and synthesizes them into insight. But Nye works inwardly, not outwardly. It turns perception into internal knowing. This means that when you encounter something that matches your internal patterns, something that seems to validate your most profound understanding of human nature and psychology, you experience it not as external data, but as confirmation of your own knowing. You feel recognized because you are recognizing yourself in another person. The narcissist understands this implicitly, even if they cannot name it psychologically. What they have mastered is the art of mirroring, and mirroring is the primary language of Nye. They observe you, your values, your intellectual interests, your wounds, your aspirations, and they reflect those things back to you with deliberate precision. They are, in essence, speaking in the one language your function understands most deeply. And because they are skilled at this, because they have spent years perfecting the craft of emotional illusion, they do not simply mirror you randomly. They mirror you at your deepest points of desire. They become the partner who understands your psychological complexity. They validate your outsider identity. They speak the language of myth and depth that others around you have never managed to grasp. This is where the trap deepens. Your Nye, which evolved to detect truth and authenticity in a world of superficiality, becomes the very tool that blinds you. Because pattern recognition works both ways. If someone presents a consistent pattern, even if that pattern is entirely fabricated, your Nye will integrate it as real. The consistency itself becomes the evidence. The persistence of the mirroring becomes, in your mind, proof of authenticity. After all, you think, a shallow person could never maintain such psychological precision. Only someone rare could mirror my depth so accurately. But here is the painful truth that distinguishes this cycle from ordinary misunderstanding. The narcissist is not mirroring your depth. They are mirroring your hunger to be understood. There is a crucial difference. Your hunger to be seen by another rare individual is so profound that when someone finally appears to satisfy it, your Nye accepts the pattern as complete. You stop questioning. You stop the constant subtle assessment that normally protects you. You relax into the belief that you have finally found the anomaly, the one person who matches your rarity. The mechanism that enables this blindness is what we might call Nye compression. When your intuitive function identifies a pattern as coherent and meaningful, it compresses all the available information into that pattern. Contradictions become anomalies. Inconsistencies become explained away as misunderstandings. or a lack of context. The pattern becomes increasingly rigid and real in your mind, even as external reality continues to contradict it. You are not choosing to ignore red flags. You are literally unable to process them clearly because your I has already committed to the pattern. To truly see the inconsistencies would require you to collapse the entire framework of understanding that has been providing you with the sense of being finally recognized. This is where shadow enters the picture. The shadow is the part of ourselves we do not wish to acknowledge, the qualities we have rejected or hidden away because they did not fit the image we held of ourselves. For many INFJs, there exists a shadow desire, perhaps unspoken even in private. The desire to be pursued by something dangerous, something powerful, something that would pursue you specifically because you are rare. The ordinary world has never quite fit you. Ordinary people have never quite seen you. So there is a part of your psyche that responds to someone who seems to stand outside the ordinary world with equal intensity. Narcissists often embody this archetype, particularly in their early presentations. They are bold. They are confident. They speak of grand visions and hidden depths. They position themselves as operating outside normal rules and norms. They seem to exist in the realm of myth, and the meaning that you have always sensed was real. The shadow attraction to the narcissist is therefore not a flaw in your judgment, though it feels that way when you finally see it. It is, instead, a hunger for recognition so profound that it can temporarily override your intuitive accuracy. It is the outsider seeking another outsider. It is the rare personality type drawn to someone who claims an equally rare and powerful identity. And the narcissist, who has often cultivated an identity that is indeed rare and transgressive, provides precisely the experience your shadow has been seeking. The feeling of being chosen by someone equally extraordinary. This is the additional layer that makes the cycle so difficult to escape. It is not simply that you are being deceived. It is that you are being offered something you have genuinely needed: recognition of your depth, validation of your outsider status, the sense that you have finally found someone who operates in the same realm of meaning and intensity that you do. The narcissist provides this through mirroring, yes. Still, the mirroring is so precisely calibrated to your actual needs that the experience feels authentic in a way that ordinary relationships never have. The love-bombing phase of narcissistic involvement is thus perfectly designed for the INFJ. Love-bombing is not simply excessive affection. It is accelerated recognition. It is the narcissist saying through action and words, "I see you. I have been looking for someone like you. I recognize your depth, your rarity, your power." For an INFJ who has spent their life feeling fundamentally misunderstood, this creates a chemical response. Oxytocin floods the system. Your nervous system moves into safety. Your I, which is constantly working to predict and protect, finally relaxes because the pattern seems to have resolved. The stranger is no longer strange. The recognition is complete. However, we arrive at the deepest paradox of blindness here. Your is not actually blind in these moments. It is seeing something real. It is seeing your own profound need for recognition. It is seeing your own capacity for depth and meaning-making. It is seeing the reality of your outsider identity and your genuine rarity. What your I cannot see is that these truths about you are being used as a template, not as an invitation to genuine reciprocal understanding. The narcissist is not recognizing you, the narcissist is using you. But the distinction between being recognized and being used becomes invisible to I in this state, because both experiences feel like pattern completion. The recovery from this cycle requires something that goes against your natural I instinct. You must learn to distrust the clarity of the pattern. You must develop what we might call humility, the understanding that pattern recognition can be hijacked by need. You must learn to ask yourself, is this pattern real, or is it a reflection of what I need to believe? This is extraordinarily difficult, because asking the question requires you to collapse a framework that has been providing you with safety and recognition. It requires you to return to the vulnerability of being unseen. One way to begin this work is to develop what we might call external verification. Because your NI works inwardly, it creates internal certainty that is not always reliable. You need to train yourself to ask, what is this person doing when I am not in the room? What are they choosing when there is no recognition for them to earn? How do they treat people who cannot offer them anything? These are not intuitive questions. They require your inferior sen function to observe concrete, external behavior over time. They require patience. But they bypass the NI trap entirely because they do not rely on pattern recognition. They rely on simple, observable facts. Another crucial shift is learning to differentiate between two different experiences of being seen. The first is being recognized, having someone accurately perceive and reflect back your actual qualities. The second is being mirrored, having someone precisely replicate your own self-perception so that the distinction between their perception and your own blurs. Recognition is reciprocal. It involves genuine curiosity about who the other person actually is. Mirroring is self-referential. It only ever speaks back to what you already believe about yourself. The narcissist offers mirroring. Genuine connection requires recognition. For many INFJs who have been caught in the mirroring cycle with a narcissist, there comes a painful but liberating moment when you realize that the person you thought was rare was actually performing rarity. They were not operating outside normal rules because they possessed extraordinary depth. They were operating outside normal rules because they lacked the capacity for genuine reciprocal connection. The depth you sensed was not theirs. It was yours, reflected back at you until you mistook it for theirs. This realization can feel devastating because it means returning to the original wound, the experience of not being seen, of being fundamentally alone in your rarity. And in some ways, that wound is real and will always be part of your experience as an INFJ. You are rare. Most people will never truly understand you. But here is the shadow wisdom that emerges from understanding blindness. The acceptance of this aloneness is actually where genuine safety begins. It is when you stop searching for someone to complete your pattern that you become capable of seeing other people clearly. The work of blindness recovery is, paradoxically, the work of learning to live with uncertainty. Your evolved to create certainty through pattern recognition. But certainty bought at the price of self-deception is not safety. It is a beautiful trap. Learning to tolerate the discomfort of ambiguity, the slowness of genuine knowing, the possibility that someone might be complex and flawed rather than either perfectly mirrored or entirely illusory. This is the maturation of your NI function. As you move forward, remember this: your NI is not the problem. Your NI is still one of your greatest strengths. It will still allow you to see patterns and truths that others miss, but you now know that your NI has a particular vulnerability, a place where it can be hijacked. You can use that knowledge to develop the discernment that turns your NI from a tool of self-deception into a tool of genuine wisdom. And that discernment will ultimately protect you, not by making you less intuitive, but by making you more willing to verify your intuitions against external reality. The mirroring cycle teaches a final and humbling lesson about the nature of the seer. Even the one who sees most clearly can be rendered blind by the depth of their own need for recognition. This is not weakness. This is the human condition, expressed through the particular lens of the INFJ psychology. Understanding this about yourself is the beginning of real protection, not because it makes you less trusting, but because it makes you more honest about the difference between being recognized and being used as a mirror. If this exploration has resonated with you, I want to invite you to share your experience in the comments below. Many of you watching have lived through the mirroring cycle, have felt the particular pain of believing you were finally understood, only to discover you were being reflected back to yourself. Know that you are not alone in this pattern, and your experience of it does not diminish your genuine gift of intuitive perception. Your INFJ is still rare and still valuable. It is simply learning, as all rare things must, the difference between being expressed and being exploited. Subscribe to join a community of INFJs who are learning to navigate the paradox of being the seer who can be rendered temporarily blind. And together, we will continue exploring the depths of this extraordinary psychology. Thank you for being here.